Well, the most memorable deals are often the first ones. So I remember my first sort of sizable deal, so to say, was one of my most memorable ones that I've learned quite a bit from. So it was a website that I acquired for probably around $700 to $800 back, I think, back in 2008, 2007, around that time. And I knew it was a really good deal because I saw how I could improve the website. But at the time, it was very easy to improve monetization. People did not really know much about how to get good CTR from AdSense ads. So it would be often completely ridiculous. People would just place the AdSense ads at the bottom of the page. Then no one sees them, no one clicks them. And all you have to do is put it above the fold, and then it just like triple the revenue. So all that just never happens anymore, unfortunately, but that would be quite common. So I acquired this website, and quite quickly I was able to improve it and grow it quite a bit to the point that it was earning about $1,000 per month. And then I had this business contact that I've been talking to online for some time, and I showed him the website, and he was interested to buy it. And he was quite successful. He was a very successful entrepreneur. He had a big network of websites, a big team and everything. So he asked me, okay, how much you want for the website? And I said, okay, I'll sell it for $20,000. And he said, okay, send me your wire transfer. And I just sent him my bank account, and he just sent the money the same day. And I was like, wow, that's really that easy. That was the first time I saw the website for like more than $10,000. And I assumed that, oh, you have to have a contract, you have to discuss the terms, you have to use an escrow agent, and and you have to wait, and there is like all these processes. But no, he knew me, he trusted me, he just sent the money, and then I got the money, I sent him the files, the website, the domain, that's it. And what I learned is that it's just a lot is about trust. If there is trust, it's very easy to make a deal. If there is no trust, it's really hard. And yeah, and it also showed me again that there is quite a bit of opportunity in basically flipping websites, like buying and growing and then reselling.
I think that's a really good example. I'm curious, I guess, just as we come to the close of this interview, you obviously bought the website. You said you bought it for around $700-ish.
Yeah.
You would have bought it from somebody who would have gone through that process of starting it from scratch. And then you've taken it and then you've revised it and made it better and improved it. For people who might be just in the process now of starting a website, and the goal is to get it to the stage where you might be somebody who might come in and buy it, but you've said at the beginning that you don't buy beginner websites. If somebody is at the stage where it is a beginner website, we covered a few things like make sure it adds value. You've got to focus on SEO and things like that. How long would somebody expect to wait if they're doing a good job before that the website might approach the size where someone like you might be interested in acquiring it or buying it?
Yeah, so typically, if it's completely new website, it might take a year or longer until you start making some good revenues, and then maybe 2 or 3 years to get to a point, potentially to get to a point where it's getting enough traffic to get like $5,000-$10,000 per month in revenue, which is the more or less the minimum that we look at. And by the way, we are doing a little case study right now, public case study, where we decided to take a domain, an expired domain, and build a new website on it. We've never done it before. We only acquire existing websites. So we decided to try it for the first time. And if people are curious, they can go to our website, domainmagnate.com, and check it on our blog. And so as of recently, we just published the 4th update. So it's been about, I'm guessing something like 5 months since we started or so. Yeah, something like that. And now it's earning around $7 per day. So it made about $174 in the last 30 days, yeah. So it's doing reasonably well, yeah.
That's pretty good, because you're going from nothing, zero, to actually starting to have income coming in regularly on a regular basis. And if you've managed to successfully do that, then it's just simply a question of scaling and continuing to just rinse and repeat. That sounds really interesting. What was the URL for that case study again?
It's a really long URL, but the easiest way to find it would probably be to go to domainmagnate.com. And then if you navigate to the blog, or just domainmagnate.com/blog, and then it would be one of the most recent posts. Yeah.